Hello everyone. Happy Halloween. I'm sorry I haven't uploaded in a while. It's been coming to the end of the first quarter, and I've been kind of a lot of work to do. So I just wanted to get all that done before I jump back into recording videos again. It is Halloween, so I am dressed up for Halloween as Kaladin Stormblast, or at least my best impersonation of him. But today we are going to be reviewing Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. This is the fourth Red Rising book, but kind of the fourth Red Rising book, but first in kind of like the second series, focusing on the conflicts between the Republic and the Society and the Rim and all that kind of stuff compared to the first trilogy. And I just got, I guess, first impressions, non-spoiler, I just really like this book. I like the different perspectives and how those perspectives inform their opinions of the Republic, of how the war is going as a whole. I was really interested to see the political conflicts that arose because of the Republic, something less aristocratical and something more democratic. Those political conflicts were really interesting. The emergence of kind of the early form of democracy and how the Republic tackled that, as well as how military tactics have changed from the time of the Rising to the war between the Republic and the Society. And I just really liked all of that. I like the interpersonal conflicts, especially between Sevro and Darrow, and really the extra pressure that was placed on both of them because of their kids, because of everything that was happening there. It was just really awesome. In addition to that, the combat in Pierce Brown writes such engaging combat, and that's just as true here as ever. And the Siege of Venus was awesome. I really enjoyed that part of the book, and it feels like a step up from everything that Red Rising was. Red Rising had great politics and political debates. Well, Iron Gold has even more multifaceted debates and different perspectives in these different conflicts. Red Rising the first three Red Rising books had Darrow as this phenomenal character and these amazing side characters. Well, this one has like 4 main characters, and all of them have unique and interesting stories. We're able to further see the culture of the Rim, and the Republic and the Society, and how all of these new factions are dealing with the major political upset that came in the form of the Rising. And I just really loved all of that. It just made for such an engaging story that just kept me hooked again and again. And Pierce Brown has such a way to get you comfortable with how things are going, but always knowing in the back of your mind that something's about to go wrong. There are so many moments where I knew something was about to go wrong, and yet he still surprised me with how it happened. And just everything about this was amazing. Highly recommended. But I will be back in a second for my spoiler-filled thoughts. So I think the best way to kind of go through my spoiler-filled thoughts is to take each of the 4 main perspectives and kind of break them down. I will start with Darrow because he's the big continuing character from the first trilogy. Darrow's story here is really interesting. I think that before Darrow was motivated, he had friends, he had allies and supporters, and all that mattered to him. But he was motivated by one thing, and that was overthrowing the society that killed his wife. And there were more reasons that were added on, and his character developed later on into the series. But he had one goal and one reason for doing it. And I think, and by giving him a wife and kid in Mustang and Pax, it kind of colors all of his actions, and he's forced to consider what he's doing, what he's becoming, and whether or not it's worth it. And he ultimately decides that it is worth it, but seeing how he grapples with it is fascinating. And I think that especially seeing the contrast of Sevro, because Sevro was put in the same position. He used to be doing things for one thing, and that was his loyalty to Darrow. And now he has something else to fight for. It's his wife and his kids. And suddenly he's caring about something else more. And seeing kind of that schism between Sevro and Darrow because of that, it's heartbreaking, but you can see why. You can understand why Sevro is doing what he's doing, why Darrow is doing what he is doing, and it just adds this layer of complexity and depth to both of their characters that I really, really enjoyed. In addition to that, this is the perspective that had the most nonstop action, and I really enjoyed that. I mean, like I said, the Siege on Venus is really awesome as they take on the Ash Lord. Breaking into Deepgrave is really exciting. But it was interesting to slowly see, because of Darrow having to compromise, not necessarily his morals, but to an extent his morals, as he breaks into Deepgrave, as he allies with Golds of the Society like Apollos, and killing Ragnar, who part of the Wardens, just what he is willing to do to defeat the Society, what he's willing to do to give the Republic peace, and as he's slowly chipping away at kind of these things that he would never even have considered doing before, but now he's willing to make those sacrifices for what he believes is the greater good. And it's just such an interesting character development for him, and how he's forced to grapple with these choices that he's made later on in the book just is super, super fascinating. The second perspective is going to be Lysander. This one's probably my least favorite just because I don't like Lysander. I think he's a bit of a brat. Obviously, I have read the next one by this point, so things change in the next one. But his perspective was very interesting, mostly in hindsight. After reading Dark Age, there's a lot that comes from Lysander's perspective that becomes really, really important in the next one. A lot of build-up and foreshadowing that doesn't pay off until the next book. And that made his chapters a little bit more of a slog, mostly because of Lysander, but it was interesting. There were some interesting bits. I loved seeing the culture of the Rim. We didn't really get to see that the only time we visited in Morningstar, but that was something interesting to see that I really enjoyed with Lysander's perspective. The death of Cassius was just was a super compelling scene. Same thing with the death of Romulus. There's a lot interesting. There's a lot to unpack with the Rim, because yes, it seems like a better version of the Society, of what the Society should have been if they hadn't given to greed and excess and whatever. However, it's still an imperfect and a largely immoral society, and so having to compare and contrast that with each other is super interesting. I really enjoyed getting to read those conflicting perspectives on that. So super enjoyed getting to see Cassius again was great. But a lot of it was better in hindsight than it was, actually reading. For me, more enjoyable in hindsight than actually reading it the first time. Next, we move on to Ephraim, the freelancer, and I actually really enjoyed his sections. Having to see this freelancer deny. It's hard to describe, but I really enjoyed seeing the conflict he goes through with Volga and the contracts that he's taking, and then him turning around. Not necessarily, for Pax and Electra at first, but definitely by the end wanting to do the right thing. And I think his story pays off even more in the next one as well, in Dark Age as well. But I really love his almost not really change of heart, but definitely change of heart there by the end when he when he destroys the gravity thrusters at the end in order to stop them from returning to the Syndicate. Even though he could potentially die, he's bleeding out, he's not going to get medical attention. It was just a super interesting perspective, and just the inner conflicts he feels with his relationship with Trig and Holiday, and he used to be part of Republic. Now he's a freelancer. Now he's stealing the kids of Virginia, Darrow, Victra, and Severo on the behalf of the Syndicate. Just really, really super interesting stuff. His conflicted relationship with Volga, it was just interesting. It was just interesting to see how he justifies it to himself, the things that he does in order to convince himself that he's still who he thinks he is. It was an interesting character to explore. And then finally you have Lyra, who was pulled out of the mines by Quicksilver and was now in kind of this refugee camp that seems almost forgotten by the seems forgotten by the Republic, and seeing her story of someone who is of the lowest of the low class, and how she interacts with the Republic kind of provides a relief in a sense, because our other three characters are, if not upper class, getting there. Darrow is the hero of the Republic. He's married to the Sovereign. Lysander is, sure, he's on the run, but he's the grandson of Octavia Aloon, and he's getting preferred treatment in the Rim. And Ephraim is as he states several times, the greatest freelancer in the galaxy. He's the greatest freelancer on Hyperion and the greatest freelancer in the solar system. And that they're all upper class individuals, or they're at the best their field, but seeing the contrasting perspective of the Republic, of the Society of Everything, from the perspective of someone who is the exact opposite, it was an interesting palate cleanser to see how she considered the Republic and the Society compared to how the rest of them did. Her story itself, not really as interesting. It kind of just felt like a background story to kind of set up Ephraim's story. But she obviously becomes a much bigger character. She becomes a much bigger character in the following novel. But getting to see that contrasting perspective just made her perspective worth it, and just made her perspective interesting every time I read it. Not necessarily because of her, but because of the perspective she was able to provide on these events. But overall, I really loved it. Like I said in the non-spoiler section, the characters are great. I love the multiple perspectives. The politicking is even better in this one. The combat and the conflict is just as interesting as it's always been. Iron Gold was a slam dunk for me, and I was riveted all the way through. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. But hopefully in the next couple days, I will also be putting out a review of Dark Age, because I finished that. And then when it comes to books that I'm currently reading, look out for coming soon will be a review of Empire of the Vampire and House of Chains. Both of those books came in from the library, and Before They Are Hanged. All three of those came in from the library, so I will be doing reviews as soon as I finish them. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Oh, and one more thing. Happy Halloween. Life before death, strength before weakness, and journey before destination. Now, goodbye.